Hello, everyone. I'm François Picard. Retribution will be strong, punishment just, the words of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. His first speech since 2 days of exploding pagers and walkie-talkies that killed 34 and injured thousands in Lebanon, met with a sonic boom over Beirut as Israeli jets did a flyover at the border. More rockets fired from both sides, with 2 Israeli soldiers killed.
There's no doubt that we suffered a major blow, both on the security and the humane front, which is unprecedented in the history of the resistance, at least in Lebanon. The enemy has transgressed all laws and red lines. We are going to call this the Tuesday and Wednesday massacres. It's a war crime, a declaration of war. You can call it what you like.
Well, for more, let's cross first to Beirut and correspondent Rawad Taha. Rawad, what would you say the lead is from that speech?
First, the lead is, and the most important detail is the retaliation. So everyone was anticipating whether there was going to be an imminent retaliation to the wave of attacks which occurred on Tuesday and Wednesday, the pagers attack and the walkie-talkies attack. The explicit answer to that is no. There is no imminent response to that, rather than Hezbollah will take the time and even possibly the years to plan a retaliation to what they called a massacre. Nasrallah tried to frame the attack on its members as an attack on the entire Lebanese community, given the fact that those devices exploded in public areas, in supermarkets, in hospitals, and not only in Hezbollah's military infrastructure and bases. And the second important lead is the fact that Nasrallah mentioned that Israel's attempt to split the two arenas, meaning the arena in Gaza and the front with Lebanon, will fail, and that Hezbollah's war of attrition with Israel, this limited war in southern Lebanon, will continue until a ceasefire in Gaza is established. So there was a clear answer from Nasrallah that the war will not end here, or the front will not reach a deal here before a ceasefire in Gaza is in place, meaning that we are returning to the status quo. We are returning to square zero or square one. And now the ball is really in Israel's hand, whether it wants to seek some sort of a de-escalation and a ceasefire in Gaza that would potentially lead to ending the war with Hezbollah, or would opt for some sort of a wider military operation against Hezbollah in the north.
Was there surprise over Nasrallah acknowledging a major blow?
There was definitely a lot of honesty in that speech. This was the first time Nasrallah explicitly tells his own people that we did suffer a major blow. We've seen a lot of assassinations over the past year, especially high top-ranking Hezbollah commanders. Back then, Hezbollah placed all those assassinations as part of this war of attrition against Israel, and in the realm of the organization's support to Gaza. But the honesty in today's speech, saying that this was a massacre, saying that this was a great security breach, saying that this was a great blow to the organization, there was a lot of honesty from Nasrallah's end. But then he continued to turn the table somehow, and let me use part of his phrasing. He said, this strong blow, however, will not bring us down as an organization. We will become stronger, more resilient, and more capable.
And just very briefly, Rawad, that flyover by Israeli jets, do ordinary citizens in Beirut shrug that off? Is that par for the course?
So over the past year, Israeli war planes and jets have been flying at low altitude, mostly in the southern part of Lebanon, near the border with northern Israel. We've rarely seen the jets flying at such a low altitude, causing severe panic for an instance in Beirut, before everyone understood that this was just a lower than usual flight for the Israeli jets. As long as breaking the sound barrier, it was not the first time the sound barrier was broken over Beirut, but the intensity during Nasrallah's speech was very different from the ones before. Definitely part of this psychological warfare as well.
Rawad Taha reporting live from Beirut. Many thanks. Let's cross to Iris Makler in Jerusalem. Iris, the speech by Hassan Nasrallah, perhaps overshadowed by the news of the cross-border strikes and the death of 2 Israeli soldiers.
You know what's been very strange about this whole period? The explosive devices, the exploding devices in Lebanon didn't stop the cross-border exchanges, you know, this war of attrition that we've seen. So this morning we saw 2 anti-tank missiles coming in, some rockets, that's from Hezbollah into Israel, some drones. By the way, the untold story of this war is that the intercept is not very successful against low-flying drones. So we saw all of that. We saw Israeli airstrikes in southern Lebanon as if nothing had changed. So anybody who expected this attack, these exploding devices in Lebanon over the past 2 days to be a game changer, can see that it's not, you know, because 2 soldiers have died, one in an attack by the drone, one in an attack by the anti-tank missile. And so the price goes on, so the war of attrition goes on. And the question is, I guess, what comes next? Is it an expansion? Is it a resolution of the war in Gaza, which would actually be a game changer? Or is it a wider war, including what both sides are capable of and neither has used so far?
Well, let's see if there's a clue in the statement in the last minutes by Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, saying that he calls it a new phase of war. It includes both opportunities as well as serious risks.
You know, it is interesting. The fact that what somebody, an Israeli analyst described the exploding devices in Lebanon over the past 2 days as a flamboyant attack. But if it is not a game changer, that lends credence to the theory that it was meant to be a preemptive strike followed by a ground offensive or a massive war, you know, a real war, not a war of attrition such as we've seen. And the question is now, is what Yoav Gallant, what he's alluding to is the fact that Israel will go with a wider war, even though what we heard from Hassan Nasrallah is that he intends to go on exactly as it's been till now. You know, let's not forget, it was Hassan Nasrallah, it was Hezbollah that attacked Israel on October the 8th. That was an unprovoked attack following the attack by Hamas on October the 7th. So, you know, it wasn't that Israel didn't respond, it was that Israel didn't choose this. Will Israel now choose to widen it? Is that what we are hearing from Yoav Gallant? Or is, as other military leaders advise, is this the time to end the war in Gaza, to reach some kind of deal with Hezbollah? And if you want a war with Hezbollah, at the time of your own choosing and the way you organize it the best, not being forced into it or backed into it by 11.5 months of a war of attrition.
Iris Makler reporting live from Jerusalem. Many thanks for that update. Let's get more on what exactly happened on Tuesday and Wednesday. There's still a large part of mystery. Bulgarian authorities now reject claims that the pagers that exploded in Beirut Tuesday were shipped through its territory. For its part, the Japanese company that made the walkie-talkies that detonated a day later states that the model was discontinued years ago. Shirley Sitbon has that story.
The simultaneous explosions of thousands of Hezbollah pagers and other communication devices raised many questions, and some of those are starting to get answers. On the method used, a Lebanese security official told the AFP that explosives were inserted in the devices, PENT. This material is very powerful, yet relatively easy to conceal.
Hezbollah is extremely security cautious. So they also have, bomb-sniffing dogs, and they do security checks.
It's believed a few grams of PETN were integrated along with a circuit board into the pager. The model used is an AR-924 from Taiwanese brand Gold Apollo. The company immediately denied being involved. It said a factory based in Budapest, BAC Consulting, was authorized to manufacture the pagers. But there is no factory nor warehouse at the company's address. The Hungarian government confirms BAC is a trading intermediary with no manufacturing or operational site in Hungary. The, quote, referenced devices have never been in Hungary. The company, created 2 years ago, has one employee, its general manager. The walkie-talkies that were targeted on Wednesday had the logo of a Japanese brand, ICOM, but the company said it stopped producing the model 10 years ago. As far as who is behind these attacks, the operating mode and the target point to one country, Israel, although it has not claimed responsibility.
Well, for more, let's go to Hastings in England. Ahron Bregman is a professor at the War Studies Department of King's College London. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Thank you very much for having me.
Any idea, any thoughts about where these devices were manufactured, how they were delivered, how the explosives got in them?
Well, we don't really know, and it's unlikely that we will know all the details, but it's a classic Mossad way of operating. They set up a shop in Eastern Europe or somewhere, and the shop is not a shop, but it is the facade, and from there they work. They probably purchased the Vipers, the pagers, and then installed in it the little bombs, and their marketing department offered it to Hezbollah, probably delivered to Hezbollah some good devices, and then on the second or third batch, they sent the faulty ones with the little bombs in them.
Send the faulty ones, and there's also the question of how were they convinced to replace their old pagers?
Well, Nasrallah, and this is the irony, believed that the way the Israelis assassinate its people is by locating them because of the cell phones carried by Hezbollah operators. So he decided, Nasrallah, and this is the irony, to change the cell phones with old-fashioned machines like Vipers and pagers. And the Israeli intelligence, probably a unit called 8200, which is part of Amman, which is military intelligence, probably they were lucky enough to intercept the Hezbollah decision or Nasrallah's decision, and they said, oh, we can offer them the new pagers, and they took it from there. This is probably how it happened.
Okay, so that's the pagers, and then the exploding walkie-talkies. So what, is it the same supply chain?
Well, I'm not sure that it's the same supply chain because these are different machines. And to be quite honest, I don't know. And I read many speculations online by experts. We do not know. And I think that what's going to happen in the future, we'll have many Hollywood James Bond films with this story at the heart of it.
The French news agency AFP did a feature on Unit 8200 in the last day. It says it's got a high turnover rate of young recruits who replace veterans. They're quoting there one former member of the unit. And also that it's the accent on things like software weakness, math encryption, hacking. How much of it is geeky stuff and how much of it is, good old finding moles that humans who you can use?
These in the past the elite of Israeli society, the best people in Israeli society, used to become pilots. Now the best in Israeli society join Unit 8200, young, very bright kids. And when they finish their military service after 3 years or so, you find them in Silicon Valley. And they play, this unit play, a leading role in gathering information and also in doing the technical side of, they were probably helped with how to install the little bomb in the cell phone. And here is an interesting story. In 1999, Hezbollah, in one of its attacks on Israel, left on purpose a little phone with a bomb in it. And the little machine was brought to Unit 8200, and they were not careful enough, and it exploded, and 2 soldiers of the unit were injured. And now it is probably the little revenge to do it to the side who did it to them in 1999.
Ahron Bregman, let's have a crack at answering the question that we've been asking the last 48 hours. Is this the prelude to something that is calibrated, part of a broad strategy that's been thought out for a long time? Or is it a one-off magic trick because the Israelis got a whiff of the fact that Hezbollah was onto them?
Yeah, that's a 1 million question, of course. And I'm asking myself, what's the point? Why to do it? Because what you do want is to keep this little surprise to use in the real moment when you go to war. You do it, and then the other side is confused. They cannot communicate, and then you send in your tanks. So what is the point? Where are the tanks? There are 2 explanations in my view. Explanation number 1 is that the Mossad realized that Hezbollah is just about to find out about the little bombs in their devices. And the Israelis decided that it is better using it than losing it. And with the approval of the government, they decided to use it. Another explanation is that it was done on purpose, and that the Israelis trying to push Hezbollah hard to make it retaliate, and this will give the Israelis the international legitimacy, if you want, to go to war against the sworn enemy.
So a final question then, which is, commenting on the day's news, you have Hassan Nasrallah clearly saying that they're not about to go for all-out war, and Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, in the past hour, warning of the potential, what he calls significant risks of what lies ahead. Both sides are holding back.
Nasrallah, in his speech, was very vague. He will retaliate, but it is very tricky for him. He understands that if he overdo it, the Israelis will invade and they will hit Lebanon very hard. It's a very dangerous moment, very, very dangerous moment. And the real danger, in my view, is a miscalculation. I believe that both sides are not interested in war. This is my belief. But a miscalculation in such an atmosphere could bring about a terrible regional war, where it will not be only Israel and Hezbollah, but also the likes of Iran, Houthis firing from Yemen, Shia groups in Syria, in Iraq. A very dangerous moment.
Aon Bregman of the King's College London, thank you so much for being with us here on France 24.